After a record snowless winter last season, what will this winter bring here in South Jersey? I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci at the Press of Atlantic City, and thank you for watching the 2020-2021 Winter Outlook. Let's take a look back at how our winter was last winter. We had palm trees blowing in the wind, plenty of beach days here, great days for shorts and t-shirts, right? Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the point is, if you are not a snow lover, well, this past winter was the one for you. Let's take a look at our forecast, though, from last winter to see how we did. We were 50-50 on this. Yes, there were short cold shots in November. However, December, well, we didn't see a lot of below average temperatures. We were well above average, and there was definitely no snowy nor'easter, and there was definitely no snow in January and February as well. What we did get right is that March was more like spring than wintry time weather, and we noticed that because we had flowers on the trees in early March here in South Jersey. So as we look at the winter 2019 and 20, we racked up the medals, and they were not medals for the most snowy or the most cold. It was quite the opposite. It was the least snowiest winter in South Jersey history. March didn't even see a flake of snow. Atlantic City International measured a half-inch, second least snowy since 1943. And to go with that, the third warmest November to March, pretty much our snow season here in South Jersey. So what happened? Well, the polar vortex explains this story. The polar vortex is a circulating current that divides very cold air well aloft in the North Pole from the rest of the atmosphere and the rest of the air around. When it is strong, it's bottled up at the North Pole. When it is weak, it can dive down a little bit. And that's how we get the polar vortex to come here and bring cold and even sometimes snow to the Northeast. But we were firmly in the strong category last winter. Now, on average, we're going to look at this solid blue line here. That's the 32-degree line, and compare it to this darker blue line here. That's at Atlantic City International Airport. These are the average low temperatures. And below this solid blue line is pretty much our snow season. This runs from the end of November all the way until the end of March here. That's when we can usually see snow. Our first snowfall on average is in the middle part of December, and we've seen snow as early as November 5th here. Let's take a look at our winter stats. The shore, no surprise, sees a little less snow than the mainland. That's just because of the milder ocean waters. We saw 58.1 inches of snow back in 2009, 2010. Least snow in a season at Atlantic City International was 0.4. We just missed the mark there. And yeah, we've seen some pretty big snows in seasons past. So let's take a look at this winter and some thoughts. Let's take a look at the factors at play. First is ENSO, the El-Nino Southern Oscillation. Are we in a El-Nino or are we in a La Nina? And after that, we can determine if we're in a west, central, or east-based La Nina. And we're going to talk about what those means in just a little bit. We want to take a look at the strength of the stratospheric wind. Winds above where planes fly practically. Also correlates to the polar vortex. We want to look at our water temperatures off our shores as well as the solar cycle, which has a weak but noticeable effect. Let's take a look at the state of the ENSO. This sounds the alarm for a big-time La Nina here. In fact, we could have our strongest La Nina in 10 years here in South Jersey. Now, that being said, it is a east-based La Nina, and we'll explain what that means. This is what happens during a La Nina pattern. Notice that jet stream at the top. The jet stream is the river of air that separates cold air to the north and warm air to the south. Notice how it comes to South Jersey in a way that it's to the north and west, that jet stream. So we get some of that warmer air. But if it's an east-based La Nina, that jet stream can move a little bit further east. That is essentially the storm track. Let's take a zoomed in look at it here. Again, notice we're just in that warm sector, but this is on average. If we are in more of that east-based La Nina, this jet stream pushes over a little bit, and maybe we get some better chances for some snow. So a little bit of good news for you there, snow lovers. This is what I think the potential storm track will be oftentimes throughout the winter here. We have our low pressure system that's zooming up into portions of interior New England. For the most part, yes, we are talking about mostly rain, but we could have storms that, as long as it's cold enough, it starts out as snow and then flips to rain. Further to the west here, and this is for the northwestern half of the state here, snow to mix to rain could be a likely storm track, and then mostly snow as you make your way into the Great Lakes states. Now, again, giving you a glimmer of wintry hope for you snow lovers out there, some research by Judah Cohen, who we had in our winter forecast article. He's the director of seasonal forecasting at AER in Massachusetts. When you look at some of the more recent La Ninas here, some of them did have midwinter warning. In other words, the polar vortex did break out during those La Nina seasons. So, yes, there is the chance that even though we're in a La Nina and overall we're going to be mild, we can still get an outbreak for cold and maybe even snow. Now, let's take a look at some of our Atlantic Ocean waters here. This is for the middle of November, well above average, and that hasn't changed as we made our way into December here. And what this does here is kind of twofold. It can produce bigger storms. Storms love clashes of cold and warm air, and the bigger the clash, the bigger the storm. However, because we are close to the coast, well, you're also going to get some more of that warmer air coming onto land. So while it can be a bigger storm, and in theory, ones with more snow, first you have to get the coastal storm, which we already said is not that likely, but second of all, you need to make sure that you are cold enough to receive that snow. Now let's take a look at the solar cycle. When we're in a solar minimum like we are now, there is a weak signal that it brings more snow. We are in the minimum now, but here's the thing. We were in the minimum last year too, and we didn't really see much snow here in South Jersey. So putting this all together, putting all of our ingredients together, let's get into it. This is from our partners at AccuWeather. It shows that we are turning milder here in South Jersey. Well, what does that mean? They're saying that as we go throughout the month of December and into early January, we will have our cool shots. But as we go into the middle of winter, mid-January, all the way through February, yeah, it's probably going to be on the milder side and one with not a lot of snow. So here are the details here as we wrap up. Yes, it's going to likely be warmer and likely less snowy, but it's hard to forecast a record or near record-breaking year like last year. December through early January will be the best time for snow and cold. Then we're thawing out through the end of February. Here's the thing with March, though. Could be colder than average. Not necessarily snowier than average, but colder than average. You see, as we go into March, low temperatures are already rising above 32 degrees as we get into the later portion of the month. Fewer coastal storms, but I am watching for the big one, and that big one would come if we do get a polar vortex event to come here where we do get that cold air outbreak. Again, you're asking for a lot. You're asking first for the polar vortex to make its way into the region. Then, once you have the cold air, you're asking for a low pressure system to come through. But the ingredients are there for maybe a one and done kind of storm. But remember, it's more than just the snow. Anytime we have a coastal storm, and thankfully it's not going to be that often this winter, it's always about the flooding, and flooding. Look what happens here in Avalon. Look what happens in Holgate, beach erosion. Remember what happened in the winter of 2017 to 18? We had our 4 Easter in March, 4 nor'easters in a row, which really tore up the Jersey Shore here. And my last note, be aware of below and above when it comes to snowfall averages, because 16 inches of snow, we can get that in one storm or more than likely in 2 storms here. Does that mean it's above average if we get 17 inches of snow off of 2 events? I'm not going to be the one to tell you that, but I think it's worth discussing. I think we should pay attention more to how frequently it snows rather than how many inches, at least here in this corner of the globe where snow is not always a guarantee, or at least a lot of snow is a guarantee each winter, like it is in some portions of the Northeast and the Great Lakes states. So thank you for tuning in to the Winter Outlook. You can follow me on social media for the latest, and you can always come back to our website at thepressofac.com/weather.